This week, we're bringing you this crazy-ass story out of Australia.
Australia, baby. Never fails.
I love Australia. It's 3 parts. Old Nikki will be out of town for a while on work, and I also just thought it was a great story, and it deserved 3 parts, so this is a 3-part series.
Cool.
If you do our exclusive Spotify thing or you do Patreon, we're going to do a big old dump of all the episodes that will be coming out tomorrow, so you can just listen to them all together.
That's right. So if you need immediate access to those, you know where to find them.
Yeah, but those of you who are not doing that, you get the tingly weight of each episode for a week while Nick's in Dallas and I'm here alone freaking eating donuts and shit.
You told me you were going on a juice cleanse.
I did. Nick laughed at me.
I said, I dare you.
You said you dare. I could not believe that.
Good. Go on a juice cleanse while I'm out of town.
Yeah, you'll be jealous and I'll be
literally dare you.
Our main sources for this episode are mainly the awesome book In the Dead of Night by Greg Hadrick. But there was also this person, Christian Silva, and she writes for ABC News in Australia, and she wrote this long form article about this case that was really interesting. And she did this really cool photojournalism thing that I haven't really seen. It's like it almost reads like a documentary in stills. So you get a real feeling of the terrain in which it happened and the crime scenes. They all, as you scroll through and the images appear. So anyway,
cool.
It's pretty cool.
Are you giving us any tidbits besides it happened in Australia?
Well, here's the thing that I like to think of. Okay. You're going to listen to this and then you're going to write the description, right? And the description is usually more detailed than what I tell you, but I don't like telling you when it's really twisty and turny because I want you to be surprised. So if you're curious, read the show description about what this is about. But for you, Nick, my nosy little furrowing husband.
Well, I mean, how else should I be if I have to sit here and listen to you? I should probably be somewhat interested.
I know. So I don't tell you details because even though you forget them anyway, I don't want to tip you off.
All right. No details. We're just going into it, baby.
It involves camping and Australia.
And what time frame? What's the era?
2020.
Oh my God.
COVID time.
COVID. Damn.
Yes. And so the whole thing is in COVID times, which I think is also interesting.
Okay. We are just moments away from launching into this story. But in the meantime, we have to handle a little business. If you're new to our show, it is so good to have you. Thank you to all of every single one of you who have been with us for a while now. In case you missed the memo, we're only able to make this show because people sign up for our Patreon and Spotify exclusive feeds. We've got some new and returning Patreon supporters that we need to thank because, like I said, you guys are the ones keeping us in business. We got Tammy, King Kermie, Laurel, Vicky, Jake, Elizabeth, Nellie Kate, Veronica, Lydia, and Debbie. Thank you so much, you beautiful souls. Every month we put out 2 true crime we put out 2 true crime episodes and 1 non-true crime episode, which is now called Mouth Noises. That is for our exclusive subscribers every month. Sign up to unlock them all, or you can unlock one at a time for $3 a pop over on Patreon as well. It's the only way we bring in any dough for this show. And if you do it today, you will get immediate access to all 3 parts of this story, which we don't know anything about except for 2020 Australia. Okay. We also want to thank Woody Mama for our newest 5-star Apple review. That kind of engagement really does help our show, so thank you kindly.
Yeah, I'd also like to throw that out there. Also, thank you to our listenership as a whole.
Yeah, of course.
Because, it's awesome. This is more people listen to this than anyone has ever seen us do improv. Combined over 10 years.
Yeah. I also want to say, for some reason, I'm feeling insecure about it. We quit doing that a long time ago. So,
I know, but I'm just saying, in general, after over a decade of doing art things, it's pretty fun to do this podcast and have people just listen to it. So thank you, even, for tuning in, because, man,
it's amazing.
Nobody's ever done that for anything we made before.
Yeah, films, scripts, all types of shit. Trust me,
sketch
we have tried.
shows.
Oh, Muriel, you have to plug in your camera real quick.
Oh,
I
dear.
forgot to do
That's
that.
okay.
Many times it's going to be on the other side of the thing.
Watch
Yeah, there's just like tons of links in the show notes of this episode for you to connect with us. Social media, all that kind of fun stuff. Oh, and also you might be watching us on video right now, or it might only be audio. We have our video system crapped out on us, and we think this is working. It may not. So audio, video, I don't know. Well, just experience this however it's happening to you. Look in the show notes and it'll be made clear. But right now, that's a mystery to us.
It's such a mystery. It's a mystery every time.
Okay.
Pretty soon we're going to fix it so you can see us, because we're really, honestly, pretty freaking cute.
Okay. I think this is fixed. This should be fixed. Anyways, if it's not, then it's not going to happen really soon because I don't know how to fix it. Okay.
Well, we are professionals. This is a true story involving murder, drugs, violence, adult themes, etc. So if any listeners are like Nick and they don't like hearing about those kind of things, go listen to a different podcast.
We do tend to curse. We tend to joke. I think Muriel does the best research in the business, but our ignorance really does run wide and deep. So if you are just like, oh, I don't like ignorant people, then maybe don't listen to us. I don't know.
That's a great addition.
Yeah,
All right, Nikki, are you ready to hear this story?
No.
Okay, let's get started. We're going to start this one with Russell Hill, a 74-year-old retired forestry worker in Victoria, Australia in the year 2020. Still tough, an uncrackable little walnut. He thought what he thought and he did what he did, and no one could tell him shit about it.
Yeah, good.
Russell had been married for 50 years, only drank brown liquor and Coca-Cola. The only thing anyone could force him to do was eventually retire. And for that outrage, he bought himself a brand new $80,000 tricked out Toyota Land Cruiser for his wilderness adventures.
Hell yeah, dude. That's sick. Do you know what year it was? Had to be a new one at that price.
2020.
But it was a 2020 Land Cruiser.
I think so. I mean,
I was just wondering because some of those old school Land Cruisers that get tricked out are all Land Cruisers are cool. But anyways. Just curious. I'm just trying to get a visual.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I looked at pictures and I still don't know what kind of car that is. I called it a truck a bunch of times. Okay. I don't really know. Russell had spent part of his younger days carving rough roads in the wild, untamed Onondaga Valley, a section of the massive, sprawling Alpine National Park in Victoria, Australia. In particular, Russell's crowning achievement was helping to cut the Zika Spur Track, and that's a series of steep, rough switchbacks outdoorsmen and women used to careen down into the valley in their four-wheel drives. In his retirement, Russell spent long stretches of time down in the Onondaga Valley, his valley, cut off from civilization, free to do whatever the hell he felt like doing.
Which was what?
Set in a camping chair in the middle of a creek, under a giant sun umbrella, drinking whiskey cokes and dipping his toes in the water with a huge frown on his face.
I love how he's like, I only drink brown liquor and Coke or brown liquor in Coke.
And now that the universe forced Russell into old age, he took up a couple new hobbies. In addition to camping in remote wilderness, Russell liked ham radios and Russell liked flying drones. And that was about it.
Okay. Flying drones, that's pretty high tech. Seems
it
like
is.
He launched himself into the modern era in a kind of a real way.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Alpine National Park is enormous. Hours away from Melbourne, in the middle of nowhere. It covers mountain ranges with towering alpine forests to rolling hills and valleys covered in thick bushland. And it's only accessible through dirt roads using four-wheel drive vehicles. It's hard to get a phone signal. Most people just shut off their phones to conserve batteries, so tracking people through phones is almost impossible. Paper maps are often used to navigate, but the area is so untamed. Sometimes the maps don't match up with the terrain. Ham radios, GPS devices, and just plain stubborn memory seems to be like the only consistently reliable ways to navigate the park.
Okay.
Russell, he camped all over the park, sometimes with his wife Robin or with friends, but mostly alone. The Onondaga Valley was one of his favorite spots to visit, particularly Buck's Camp, which is a beautiful spot near a river that held special significance. Because back in 1994, Russell's nephew was shot and killed there in a deer hunting accident. And the family installed a plaque at the campsite as a memorial and a warning. It reads, "Not every stag under a tree is a deer."
R.I.P.
So Russell had never been big into guns and hunting, and the death of his nephew put him off guns entirely. He never had a gun actually registered in his name, and according to his family, by 2020 he actually hadn't even handled a gun in like 3 decades.
That's kind of counter to this type.
Yeah,
I feel like.
Yeah, it's kind of uncommon. You know, there were strict regulations and stuff, but the valley was definitely popping off with deer hunters. That was what a lot of people were doing. But regardless, Russell didn't need a gun to occasionally terrorize other campers in a lecturing, bossy old guy way. Russell, the king of the valley, was a stickler for rules, but only when it came to other people. So he made an impression as a character, definitely ruffled feathers and ruled the roost of whatever campground he landed in. For instance, in February 2020, an ultra marathoner was running a days-long race through the Alpine region in the park. And this runner, Scott McDonald, he had a support crew who had plans to set up his camp for him ahead of time at this place, Pike Flat. So they get there and they see a white Toyota Land Cruiser set up with a tent and gear, and assume they're all in the same boat, setting up camp for the ultra marathoners. And no one was there, though. No one was at that camp. So they just set up their camp near the Land Cruiser. Like in normal circumstances, camping etiquette dictates you give other campers a little space, but thinking they were all in this race together, maybe more people would be coming later, Scott McDonald's tent was pitched pretty close to the Land Cruiser.
Ooh, that's like when someone tries to sit close to us at the movie theater at AMC on a Tuesday matinee.
Get so bitchy.
Dude, don't sit on the same. Don't be next to us. Go anywhere else. We need our space.
We keep getting we get our tickets really early, and then we get groups of 4 people on both sides in an empty theater, and I cannot for the life of me.
That's
that
a
out.
shame on you. I don't care. Don't sit next to us. Go sit somewhere else.
So glad. I feel like either because my dad is like that. Like if anybody sits anywhere near him, he thinks that they're he throws a total fit.
Yeah.
And then I thought I inherited that from him, and it was a negative quality. But I respect you so much, and that you feel the same way.
Yeah, I
makes
legitimize
me feel
that
like,
anger.
oh, I'm legitimate by being like, get out of here.
Yeah.
We just stand in the back, and then we wait. I look at the app and figure out where no one's sitting, and then I'm like, we're gonna go sit.
We're sitting over there. I'll give up my perfect seat that we got in advance. Because if you're sitting next to it, it's no longer a perfect seat. I'm saying if you're in a crowded theater, it's fun to see movies with people. But if there's tons of space, we're bringing in whiskey. We got our Lunchables. We have all types of contraband.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
And also, it's hot. A lot of the time we go because it's hot. I'm not trying to sit next to somebody's body.
I don't even want to be
and feel
2
like
seats
there's
removed.
steam and my steam mixing. Hell,
You can be in
no.
front of me or behind me, and that's about it.
Or a couple seats away.
At least 3. 2's not enough. Okay.
All right. So, getting back to wherever the hell I am in the script.
They're too close to him.
They're too close, right? And after a day of running, this guy Scott, he finally gets to the camp. He settles down to rest, and Russell comes barreling in. He's riled up to the gills, asking Scott, quote, "What the hell is going on?" Russell laid out the rules, man. He said, "Give your fellow campers a bit of room, for Christ's sake."
Maroon?
A bit of room, for Christ's sake. But, he wasn't really an unreasonable guy. He was just kind of cranky and self-assured. So after Scott explained the mix-up, Russell's hackles came down. And
Right.
Scott later said Russell really wasn't like an aggressive guy, just more like an older dude being very frank and direct.
Right, because right now you and I will just sit somewhere else in the theater, but definitely in our 70s, I'm gonna be like, why did you sit next to us?
Yeah.
Look how much space is in this theater.
See, now I need to give my father a little bit of grace. I understand this now. Okay, so a couple weeks later, Russell had a run-in with another group of campers. So if you can kind of track this, we're talking like February 2020, March 1st 2020. Like he's out there all the time, right? Like
Yeah, you're also naming like the very very precipice of when the pandemic hits. Yeah.
And that'll come into play in just a minute. So a couple weeks later, Russell had a run-in with another group of campers. He was at a different campsite called King Billy, camping near a pair of deer hunters. They said Russell told them, he wasn't a hunter himself. And then he talked to them about his nephew's death in the deer hunting accident. And then lectured them for a while on firearms safety. But they actually said Russell seemed kind natured, easy to talk to, but he seemed to really be struggling with his retirement. He said it, quote, "Retirement fucked me up."
Yeah.
Russell told the hunters
That'll happen, I guess.
Yeah, he had a family, 3 lovely daughters, but none still at home, just me and the wife. And quote, "If I go home, my wife is just gonna nag me anyway. I might as well stay up here."
So I can nag you about firearm safety and muzzle awareness.
Thank you. Later that day, the hunters saw Russell cutting down a protected species of tree with a chainsaw for firewood. And, they didn't tell him to stop, right? But they just said, "Hey, man, be careful just in case a park ranger turns up." And Russell just replied, "I don't give a fuck about that."
No, what's going to happen to Russell?
Toward the
Muriel?
end of March 2020, the world was sliding into a global pandemic. The state of Victoria had declared a state of emergency, and the threat of lockdown was looming. March 19th, 2020, Russell Hill decided to go off on a last hurrah solo camping trip. His wife, Robin, helped him pack up. Robin and Russell had been married since their early 20s. They had 3 daughters in quick succession in the 70s and had been married for 50 years. And back in the early days, they'd camped together as a family in the Onondaga over Christmas holidays, but now they'd settled into a new rhythm. Russell mostly went solo, and Robin packed the treats and the care. She packed a fresh pack of the antidepressant medication Russell had been taking for years, but refused to pick up from the pharmacist himself. She packed a bottle of rum and some cans of pre-mixed whiskey and Coke and some extra cash so he could take himself out for lunch on the way to the campground and not have to worry about that. Russell planned to be gone until about the 25th of March. And then Robin would keep tabs on him like she always did, listening into his nightly ham radio chats with friends. So I think you have to be licensed to do these high frequency radio, to communicate on them. And Robin wasn't licensed, but there was a setup at the home so she could tune into his frequency and just listen, just to make sure he was okay.
Sure.
And then Russell was off. Russell had his Toyota Land Cruiser geared up to the gills. He had his ham radio, his paper maps, all his supplies, food, camping gear, and of course his new state-of-the-art drone, an expensive toy that he used to survey the valley land that he had helped shape decades earlier. And while Russell didn't carry a gun, he had an extra layer of security. He and other ham radio enthusiasts who also did remote camping had this tradition, nightly 6 p.m. safety calls. And they were mostly just casual chats, more like a head count and fireside hang. But they definitely tuned in at 6 every night.
How long do they hang out for?
40 minutes or something.
What? Just talking?
Yeah, because not everybody would be on the call all the time, but a lot of them would be alone
Yeah.
and in their 70s or wherever.
Yeah.
Remote camping. And so it was just a way to make sure, like, oh, I've heard from this guy today. It's like a nice way of making sure everybody's okay.
Why is that making me so warm and bubbly on the inside?
I don't know.
Like old guy friendships.
Yeah. And gals. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on Friday, March 20th, 2020, at 6 p.m., Russell joined the call. And as friends later described, he was just happy as a pig in shit. But then 3 days went by with no word from Russell.
I don't like this.
And the last time Russell joined the call, he'd mentioned his radio had been acting a little wonky, so maybe he was having issues. He wasn't due back home for a couple of days, so he technically wasn't missing. But the thing was, it was a weird time to be out of contact because the world was going haywire. Like major cities across the world were already locking down in anticipation of a full-blown COVID-19 global pandemic. We were locked down in LA already by this point. Mm-hmm. They shut down our restaurant gigs and sent us home on March 19th. Like Nick and I were already getting day drunk and trying to figure out how to make bagels, thinking this whole thing would blow over in a couple days.
Yeah, literally on March 20th, there's a picture I have somewhere in my phone of me just eating the most gigantic breakfast sandwich that you've ever made. And we're just like crazy look on the face of like, okay, here we go. We thought it was going to be like a week.
We did.
That?
Yeah, we definitely did.
We just thought like, oh, we get a week off work. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, and I think Australia shut down super hard, didn't it?
They shut down. They did. They shut down really, really hard. I think I don't know exact details. I read a little bit, but then I didn't write it down. But I think they had one of the most strict lockdowns in the world.
Yeah, right. That's what I remember. But it sounds like it's not relevant to the story, really.
Well, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's 3 parts, baby.
Yeah, who knows? Whatever you think is irrelevant now is going to bite you in the ass by part 3.
In the small town of Druin, about 50 miles east of Melbourne, in the midst of impending lockdowns, Robin Hill listened into Russell's 6 p.m. safety chats, feeling a sense of dread grow each day she didn't hear her husband's voice.
Yeah.
On the 25th of March, Russell didn't come home. Victoria was hit with COVID lockdowns, and Russell's friends from the Ham Radio Collective called Robin to suggest she contact police. So the next morning, Robin Hill went to her local police station in person to report her husband missing. By March 27th, news of Russell's disappearance was leaking into the press and social media. But, there were a lot of other things going on at the time, so it wasn't exactly front page news.
Sure.
Police ventured into the Onondaga Valley on the 27th to speak to any straggling campers and hunters to see if anyone had seen Russell or his truck. Now, one man, 68-year-old camper Colin Boyd, he spoke with police, looked at the photographs of Russell and his white Land Cruiser, but he hadn't seen anything matching the descriptions. Then, 2 hours later, Colin was hiking around and stumbled on this unnerving scene.
Uh-oh, man.
A brand new white Toyota Land Cruiser parked at Buck's Camp with black scorch marks running down the left side. The side mirror on the left looked as if it had been shot off, and the campsite itself was burned to the ground. He could pick out scraps of a tent and like an impressive collection of camping gear warped and melted together, like a little table, solar panels, camping chairs. Colin Boyd quickly took photographs and recorded his GPS coordinates and then took off to find cell phone reception so he could alert police.
Yeah.
But he found no people there. There was no trace of anyone. Police confirmed the license plate matched Russell's vehicle. So that was it.
Yeah.
And then, that same day, before investigators had time to get back to Onondaga, police received another phone call. Vicky Birch from the Pakenham Country Women's Association wanted to know if they had heard anything from 73-year-old Carol Clay. She assumed Carol had been the one who reported Russell missing because they had been camping together. And police were like, what? Vicky said Carol had been planning on taking a cruise with her sister, but the cruise line was shut down due to COVID. So Carol decided to take this last-minute camping trip with Russell before the impending lockdown. Now, Carol said she wasn't due back until the 29th of March, but no one could get a hold of her. So here's a twist. Investigators got back to Onondaga on March 28th. At Buck's camp, they found Russell's burnt-out campsite. It was obvious nothing had been touched for days. It was completely undisturbed since the fire. Even the wild parrots in the area were quiet, so it was very eerie. And police found like more expensive electronics burnt in the pile, just strange things. And sure enough, in the cab of the truck, they found Carol Clay's purse. Russell and Carol's IDs and wallets were in the truck, but they'd been stripped of cash and both of their cell phones. And that's when they knew they had to drive out and talk to Robin Hill to figure out what she knew about Carol Clay. Well, first off, it was as sad and ugly as you probably guessed. Robin had no idea Carol had been on the trip with her husband. But the story of Carol and Russell and Robin had spanned decades. Robin said her husband, Russell, met Carol Clay when they were just kids. They were childhood friends, then sweethearts. Russell was Carol's first boyfriend. And Robin told investigators, quote, Carol wanted to get married at like 18 or something, and Russell got the yips. That was a bit fast for him. So Russell dumped Carol, broke her heart, and later started dating Robin. And Robin said, they'd bump into Carol Clay occasionally. And Carol and her husband were always a bit touchy, but Russell told Robin not to worry, that Carol was just his first cousin. So Carol sort of,
true?
Yes. So Carol sort of drifted out of the scene, and then Russell got married super young anyway. Married Robin at like 22 or 23 years old. Russell and Robin had their first of 3 daughters just a year after their marriage. And Robin said, quote, then around the early noughties, we started to bump into her again. She was big in the CWA. That's the Country Women's Association. And we had a bit to do with that. And so we just, found ourselves at a few of the same shows and meetings and stuff. They'd always had a good chat, and I wouldn't think much about it. But she always thought it was weird that Carol and her husband would take these long private walks together during these gatherings.
Carol and Robin's husband.
Yeah. Carol, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Carol and Russell would take these long private walks together during gatherings. But then things hit a wall. Robin said, quote, about 15 years ago, it came to a head because one of my friends found out there was something going on, and she fronted Russell and said, if you don't tell Robin, I will. So this was maybe like 2005 or 2006 or so, and Russell fessed up. Robin said, well, I let him have it. What do you say to that? I'll teach him to make a fool out of me. As far as I was concerned, it was me or her. And Russell said, yeah, he knew he got that, but he didn't want to bust at the family, so he'd call it off. And this was like 13, 14 years ago. And he said he'd never see her again. And I didn't think he had. I really didn't. I thought this was all over 14, 15 years ago. So as for Carol Clay, during the time, my eye is burning, excuse me. So as for Carol Clay, during the time Robin said Carol had like drifted out of the scene, Carol got married. She started her own family. And Carol Clay, she was a huge community booster. She was a volunteer, prolific home baker. She was really well known for her sponge cakes. She sometimes taught baking classes. And Carol Clay, she was like kind of the opposite of Russell, like a smart dresser, elegant, always wore a strand of pearls. Her social media was filled with pictures of Carol smiling ear to ear with a glass of white wine in full glam makeup with white stylish hair and red lipstick. In fact, her catchphrase around the CWA was, "Don't forget your lippy girls."
What does that mean?
Like, don't forget your lipstick.
Oh, don't forget your lippy girls.
Yeah, don't
Okay.
forget your lippy girls.
I thought a lippy girl was a type of
person.
Yeah,
No.
like a female archetype I wasn't aware of. Okay.
Carol Clay had spent 15 years working for the CWA. She was president of the Pakenham branch, and she was in the process of applying to a top position in the organization, board member of the Victoria CWA. The organization focused on helping provide support for women and families, mostly in rural areas of Australia, through grassroots organization. So after reigniting their affair, Carol took a different route from Russell. Perhaps I've never seen or read the book, but maybe an eat, pray, love route.
Okay, yeah.
No, a live your best life route. Instead of
she's taking the cruises or whatever.
Right. Instead of keeping everything secret and staying married, Carol divorced her husband. And unlike Russell's family, Carol's friends and daughters, they pretty much knew everything about the affair. The affair was an open secret, which sort of ethically clashes, I think, a bit with the CWA thing, but whatever.
Well, I mean, was it an open secret that Russell was keeping it a secret?
Yeah.
That was part of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and obviously Robin didn't know.
Right.
So I kind of obviously it's horrible. It's like a horrible cheating thing, and that's terrible. And then also I don't know, man. You're in your mid 70s, and you're just kind of
I mean, you got to do what you got to do, and if knowing that the person you're having an affair with is a liar and that's cool with you, then that's you got to do what you got to do. It's just that's how you do it.
They created a life, and I think at some point.
Well, and your cousins, I guess. Are you still cousins when you're 70?
No, they weren't really cousins.
Oh, they weren't really cousins.
No, he just kept telling his wife.
Oh, that's what I was asking.
Cousin.
See, that's a dumbass lie. She believed that lie.
Yeah. She thought they were cousins forever. They'd be seeing each other at the local fair, being like, "Hey." He's like, "Oh, don't worry.
That's
I know we're touching a lot and we're flirting a lot, but that's just my cousin."
Come on, man. You gotta be honest. Okay, is your mom your mother's sister?
I know. That was my first question. I was like, do they not know each other's families, or what's going on over here?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Anyway.
Anyways, yeah.
So it is what it is. Carol's daughter, Emma, said her mom's relationship with Russell just seemed really loving. Quote, "It suited them. Mom enjoyed her independence, but she was happy with Russell and what they had. They didn't have to be with each other 24/7, but it was a good relationship. It always had been, apparently. They cared for each other, loved each other." Now, Carol wasn't a camper on any level, but she appreciated a pretty piece of nature. And Russell seemed like he really did it up when he took Carol out. He got a fancy new truck, lots of nice camping gear, electronics. He even had a portable toilet stall so she didn't have to use the outhouses. So the pretense of camping was how they kept their affair under wraps. These solo trips.
Okay.
And I'm not getting into this, but actually lots of people were like, "Oh yeah, that's how I found out Russell was having an affair." Is I ran into him at a camping thing.
Yeah,
and they didn't even hide it. They were like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm Carol.
Yeah,
Here's our one-person tent."
And what? She's just kept her lips zipped during the 6 p.m. ham radio check-ins.
Yeah, she just sit next to him and not say anything in case Robin heard anything.
Right, because she's listening every night.
Yeah, and definitely that was by design.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right. So now the smaller story of a missing man buried under press coverage on the pandemic became this. I'll repeat that. And now the smaller story of a missing man just buried under press coverage on the pandemic became this national scandal. An elderly pair of secret lovers pretending to be cousins, vanishing in the Onondaga Valley, leaving behind an annihilated campsite and a devastated spouse of 50 years.
Right.
Now everyone was talking about it. Now, from the beginning, the COVID-19 pandemic slowed down the investigation into Carol and Russell's disappearance. On Monday, May 30th, just after investigators realized they were looking for 2 missing people, not just one, they were hit with the Victorian government announcing a stage 3 coronavirus restrictions. Now you can only leave your house for food and supplies, exercise, medical care, or work in the case that your workplace wasn't already shut down. Even police were subject to the order. So certain police did have exemptions, but it still diminished manpower and choked off the investigation. In these early days of the investigation, police had a few theories that didn't involve foul play, like maybe they had gone for a walk and had an accident, and someone had robbed their camp while they were away and burned it to conceal the evidence. Maybe they had a camping stove accident and started a fire and then wandered off wounded and burned to look for help and disappeared into the bush. Maybe they had eloped and started a new life together, faking their deaths so they could be together. Because, damn, they were in their mid-70s already. Might as well just go do something else. But ultimately, all those theories were shot down. I mean, Carol was severely asthmatic. She depended on an inhaler. They wouldn't have gone far into the bush, and police had found no trace of them near the campsite. Also, Russell had just dropped $80,000 on this new Toyota Land Cruiser. His family thought there was no way he'd damage it and abandoned it intentionally. And plus, Carol, she just bought a house 2 months prior with her divorce settlement money. So,
They have
their lives are
heaven.
set up.
They're like living their heavenly existence.
Right.
Right.
And, they were both really close to their children, and they hadn't been in contact with them. Plus, their bank accounts had remained completely untouched. Nobody had tried to make any purchases to the Bahamas or Vegas to get married or something.
Vegas. Do people in Australia do that?
I don't know.
Vegas to get married.
I'm sure there's an equivalent to it.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to the U.S. during the pandemic. So police started a search and rescue mission on April 1st, 2020. By now, they had discovered the campsite had been torched in a deliberate act of arson. An accelerant had been used. They also found out about this new drone that Russell was all chuffed about and realized it was missing from the campsite completely. So the only thing of note they found was a bag with Russell's antidepressants and a map of where deer hunting was and wasn't allowed in the valley, presumably something Russell was using to police other campers with, since obviously he wasn't a deer hunter himself.
Yeah. Well, maybe he didn't want to be around where people were hunting deers also.
Could be. But I think after all these years, he might know. And then, to me, I think it's a thing you pull out and be like, you're not supposed to be doing that. Look at this map.
Okay, little Miss Conjunction, or whatever that word is. Well, yeah. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
But searching the valley was incredibly tough. Manpower was cut down to nothing, and the weather was nuts with rain and wind. And remember, their weather's on the opposite schedule, so Christmas is really
it's hot in December or whatever, yeah.
And hot and
sure, okay.
Spring and summer are winter.
Their toilets do something insane, like suck it up into the sky or something.
I just didn't explain it, but then it is there is mention of weather in this, and so whatever. So it's nuts. It's really bad weather, rain and wind. By April 6th, this search was called off, with police saying, quote, "It is now highly unlikely the pair has survived." And then 2 days later, a critical tip came in. Way back on March 21st, the day after the last known contact with Russell over the ham radio, Andrew Marquardt was camping with his family, and he stumbled on a creepy scene. On Saturday, March 21st, around 11 a.m., he came across a campsite that looked as if it had been intentionally burnt to the ground, right next to a brand new white Land Cruiser with fresh burn marks across the canopy and a broken side mirror. But the fire was cold. Now, he didn't say anything at the time to his family. He just went back to the family vacay. But he remained preoccupied with the scene. He turned the scene over and over again in his head that night. And he kind of went from, oh, that was creepy, to extremely concerned.
Yeah, it'd be like, my family's in the vicinity.
Yeah, and also like, are there murdered people by?
Yeah,
Do somebody
absolutely.
need help?
Yes.
Whatever. So the next day, he went back to the site to investigate. Andrew Marquardt found a cooler with like a bunch of alcohol and wine and booze and snacks, cokes and rum, juice boxes. He found a pantry fully stocked with food and a woman's purse on the passenger seat of the truck. So he actually took photos, like timestamp photos that day. And when the camping trip with this family was over, he went back to Melbourne. And I believe he did report the suspicious campsite to the police at the time, but that information never made it to the right police department who was investigating. Like they just kind of languished. So on April 8th, Andrew Marquardt's wife was like, dude, obviously nobody knows about your pictures.
Yeah.
She'd had enough. So she called in the tip herself. And it gave investigators a key piece of information. So now, based on Andrew Marquardt's information, they could peg the fire occurring between the 6 p.m. ham radio call Russell made to his friends on Friday, March 20th, and the photos of the burnt campsite took at 11 a.m. the next day, Saturday, March 21st. So now they had this like window of time. And another break in the case came quickly. A few days later, on April 13th, investigators finished analyzing Russell's cell phone data and found his last known location. In the early morning of March 21st, Russell's phone had pinged some cell phone towers about 40 miles from Buck's Camp near Mount Hotham for about a 4-hour period. And then the signal stopped. Far away from the charred campsite at Buck's Camp, too far for Russell to have like walked through the thick bush at night in just a few hours.
Right. And sorry, the cell phones were not at the scene of the crime.
No. At this point, investigators were pretty sure Carol and Russell were dead. They weren't ruling out an accident, but signs were starting to point towards foul play. And, like there were a fair amount of illegal weed farms that were nestled in the park, and Russell had this powerful drone. Like maybe he had seen something he shouldn't have and got mixed up with some dangerous people who murdered them and took the drone footage. And also, just generally, there were actually a lot of weirdos in the valley. Occasional campsite burglaries, and then a handful of strange and recent unsolved disappearances. They were wild men living out in the bush, something between like wilderness survivalists and hermits, sometimes called bushies. The most infamous being the Button Man.
That's just like, don't have a nickname,
At this point,
If you have a nickname, man, yeah, that's already a problem.
the Button Man had become a sort of folklore legend, but he was and is a very real person, a super buff man around 70 years old who moved through the bush with the speed of a supernatural creature and camped,
Sasquatch.
or like Wendigo, whatever, and camped on the side of a desolate mountain overlooking the valley. Button Man, he hunts deer with handcrafted Aboriginal-style spears and makes buttons out of the antlers and huge plugs for his ear piercings. Now, the Button Man has never done anything violent or terrible to anyone, but he's reported to have like jacked people's like piles of firewood at night, or materialized by a campfire and stand there with a 1,000-yard stare making awkward conversation. It sounds like he like watches campers and deer hunters from his cliffside perch and then like stalks them and messes with them sometimes if they come up the mountainside. Apparently even Russell Hill had his own run-in with the Button Man. A year earlier, he was camping up on the King Billy track with a friend when the Button Man came up agitated and told them to camp somewhere else. I think the Button Man just left after that and nothing came of it. But, weird stuff goes on out in that bush, and excluding Carol and Russell, 4 people disappeared without a trace in that bush between 2008 and 2020. Warren Meyer, David Prideaux, Niels Becker, and Conrad Whitlock. So Warren Meyer, 57-year-old Warren Meyer, he disappeared in another national park in Victoria on Easter Sunday, 2008. Now, he's an experienced hiker.
2008 or 2018?
2008. So that's the very first.
Oh, I thought you said between 2018 and 2020.
2008 and 2020, but
Okay.
most of them actually happened around 2020.
Okay.
So he was an experienced hiker and a cautious guy. He was super prepared, and he was just going on a 6-mile hike. He had food and water, a phone, paper maps, a whistle, like everything. And then he never came home. And that day, a bunch of weird stuff was happening in the bush near Warren's hike. A guy with homicidal ideations had escaped from a psychiatric facility and was wandering around the same track as Warren Meyer. He died a year later without mentioning a thing about Warren, but, there could be a way they were connected. Also, during the search for Warren, police found randomly a bunch of illegal weed fields hidden near the trail. And a guy in town with his wife and his little kids who were staying in a vacation rental that backed up into the bush near where Warren disappeared said that day on Easter Sunday, they heard 150 to 200 gunshots.
Damn.
The guy said, quote, "There was a lot of gunfire that started all of a sudden. There was no pattern to it. It was madman shooting." And
shootout kind of style.
Yeah. And Warren Meyer was never found. Then there was 50-year-old David Prideaux, a manager at a local prison. So
Manager?
I think they just call it a different thing.
Yeah.
So he was married with kids. He was healthy. He loved the outdoors. And in June 2014, he left to go meet his brother-in-law on a deer hunting trip in the Victorian bush. And they were geared up with hunting stuff. But David didn't bring maps or his phone, just a GPS device. And they split up to hunt solo for a while. And David Prideaux didn't make it back to the campsite that day for lunch. His brother-in-law was like, fine, he might have been stalking a deer. No big deal. They had energy bars, blah, blah, blah. And then David missed dinner and didn't answer any of his brother-in-law's radio calls. And when it got dark, the weather came in, windy and pouring down rain. David's brother-in-law searched, found nothing, and called emergency services. And police searched in the sleet and the wind from about 9:45 p.m. to 4 in the morning. Search teams came in at daybreak, and over the course of several days, the teams of searchers found absolutely nothing. No food wrappers, no clothing, no footprints. No trace of David Prideaux was ever found. In October 2019, 39-year-old Niels Becker set off on a solo 5-day hiking trip for his birthday. He was a single guy who loved Christian country music, and he just wanted to go on an adventure. He trained for months to scale the Australian alpine walking track just above the Onondaga Valley. And he was well prepared, super familiar with the area. He sent a message to his family towards the end of the hike saying he was about 6 hours away from his car. And the last person to see Niels Becker was the Button Man. Now, the Button Man told police, they didn't speak, but the route that Niels took ran through the Button Man's campsite. So he did see Niels. And then after that, Niels Becker was never seen again. And then probably the weirdest disappearance was 72-year-old businessman Conrad Whitlock, who vanished back in July 2019. So Conrad knew the natural areas around his home, but he was decidedly not an outdoorsman, not a hiker. He went to bed with his wife around 11:30 p.m. on a night in July, and when she woke up at 5:30 in the morning, he was gone. And this was kind of par for the course. Conrad liked to get up early before work so he could take himself out to breakfast. But then later, he didn't show up for work. And that evening, his wife Mandy tracked his phone using an app and found it all the way up on Mount Bueller, like 3.5 hour drive from their house. Now, apparently, according to CCTV and dash cam footage, Conrad drove his white BMW up into the high country in the middle of the night. He left his jacket, phone, wallet, and keys in the car, and he disappeared. Police tracked him driving out of the estate where he lived around 3 a.m. and then landing at Mount Bueller around 6:30 in the morning. And they observed him sitting in his car on the side of the road through dash cam footage from passing vehicles. Then there was a 10-minute gap where no cars passed by. And when the next car went by, Conrad was gone and the car was empty. There was no path to take a walk. On the other side of the car was a sharp drop into a crazy tangle of dense bush and fallen trees. And Conrad's body was never found. He just vanished into thin air.
Okay.
And now,
okay, I have questions, but
2 more people were added to this list of people who disappeared in the Victorian bush under mysterious conditions. Russell Hill and Carol Clay.
Okay.
But they would only briefly touch this list. Their case would not remain a mystery for long.
Is that the end of part 1?
The end of part 1.
The end of part 1.
To be continued.
I have a question for you,
Yeah.
which is, are also people missing and then they're found, like accidents, hiking?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's why, like, you know, like when they say, "Oh, missing persons," you have to wait a certain amount of days before people will look for them. You're out in the bush. I think that if you're with people and they're like, "I'm worried about this person," they just come in and start looking. Like when my mom and I walked across England a couple years ago, they were basically like, if you don't show up for your hotel and you don't call them, especially during peak season, then they just call rangers to come find you.
Yeah, like where are they?
Yeah.
Okay, but my question is like, so these people there's also people that are disappearing and probably dying out in these things, and then they're found and it's like, oh, it was a
hiking
accident.
Yeah.
So that's also happening, and these ones are definitely not that.
They're not that. They're like these disappearances that like kind of defy logic in these like
in these
in these circumstances. It's like they should have found remains. They should have found signs of something. These are experienced hikers. And in the case of the last guy, he's not. But he, like, where was he going to go? There's no trail. They searched the whole area. There's nowhere he couldn't have traveled. He just disappeared, you know.
Okay, well, got it. Okay. I also want to note, Muriel, that you were really right. You're almost never that accurate about how long you think an episode's going to be. That was pretty much exactly 50 minutes.
I am accurate.
It's very, I mean, you're the one who told me this was only going to be 2 parts.
Once I understand where I'm at, after I did the work, not my projection 4. Because my projections are always wrong. And I will concede that. My projections are always completely fucked up. But when I actually write the thing, I think my timing's pretty good.
Okay. The end. Thank you so much for listening to part 1 of this series. If you're fiending for part 2 and part 3, you can go to patreon.com/Muriel'sMurders. You can subscribe there for like $5 a month or more.
And
if
then
you got
just
the
cancel.
dough. And that don't cancel. Sign up for life and forget that you signed
like,
up.
you don't have to sign up forever.
Or you could even just buy them for $3 a piece.
I'm trying to save people money here.
Same thing on, you can't buy them for individually on Spotify, but if you love Spotify, you can sign up through there. It's the best way to support our show. Thank you so much. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Substack, those kinds of things.
And tell your mom about her, because moms love us.
Yeah, tell your mom. You know, you guys, it's just always nice to connect with your mom on a little bit of a deeper level, and having Muriel's Murders be another bonding force in your life. That's just a gift that we like to give the universe, you know?
Look at my Pilates arms. They're getting slightly better.
Okay, well, that might be possible depending on how this video worked, which I'm about to find out right now. Okay, everyone.